Hello, my name is Caitlin Carlock, and today my group and I will be discussing federal curriculum versus state individualized curriculum. So first off, what is federal curriculum? A federal or national curriculum is a common program of study that is designed to ensure uniform content and standards of learning across the nation. It is legislated by the national government and measures progress through national testing. The United States does not currently have one. Currently, we have state-based curriculum, although we have made measures towards a national curriculum through Common Core. However, Common Core is not a federalized national curriculum. States are able to choose whether or not they want to follow those standards, and it's only in math and English language arts. And we will talk about Common Core a little bit later. So, the United States passed in 1965 Section 604 of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. The ESEA was passed by President Lyndon B. Johnson as a part of his war on poverty. It was reinvented by the No Child Left Behind Act in 2001, and that act provided federal funding to primary and secondary education. With funds for professional development, instructional materials, resources to support educational programs, and parental involvement promotion. It emphasized equal access to education. The No Child Left Behind Act supports standards-based education reform to set higher standards to test kids on and to make sure that they have testable goals and measurable goals for children to reach through education. To receive federal school funding, states have to give assessments to all students at select grade levels. Now, what is state curriculum? The states are in control of the establishment, selection, and regulation of curriculum, teaching methods, and instructional materials in their school as well. Each state has different standards and policies that impact the quality of education. Each state's constitution requires that it has a school system that can provide children to receive education. Many state constitutions express provisions for creating educational curriculum. State legislators have set mandatory requirements for students to graduate, and most state governments often choose to delegate much of their authority to local school districts, but they can reclaim that authority. All right. So now I will be discussing the cons of federal curriculum. So the cons are that not every school is the same. Each school is going to have different students, and a federal curriculum can't account for students that need something more or less depending on where they are. Student achievement is based solely on external tests. Federal curriculum really focuses on benchmark tests and making sure that everyone is on an equal playing field and that everyone is learning these national requirements. But this causes teachers to teach for a test instead of teaching so the children understand and for each individualized student. The focus is on the product instead of the process. As I kind of mentioned, it's because of these national requirements, teachers focus instead on making sure that each student reaches the tests and the benchmarks instead of making sure they really understand the process of how to get to an answer. Not every student is the same. Some students are going to need more help and some students are going to need less help. And with a federal curriculum, what often happens is that the students who don't need as much help excel, and then the ones that do need help and are struggling get left behind because there's just not enough time for the teacher to cover everything that they're supposed to cover and also make sure that everyone is caught up and understanding. The focus is on societal needs instead of the individual, and there's a loss of student-teacher interaction. As I mentioned, teachers become very stressed because they need to teach for students to meet these testing requirements and make sure that they have good tests. So it teaches more of, at least they get an answer, and teaches like how to get an answer, but a specific process instead of the right answer, because each student is different. So no matter how they work it out, if they reach the correct answer, then that's the way that works for them. However, with national curriculum, we haven't had a national curriculum, but through Common Core, we can kind of assess it. And what happens is they teach a specific process instead of teaching for a right answer. So if one student doesn't understand the process of how to multiply by counting like 5, 10, 15, like 3 times 5 is 15, if they don't understand that, instead if they understand memorization or a visual process, then they get those things wrong, like marked on tests, because they don't do it the way that the teacher wants them to, because that's the way that the curriculum is set up. So the cons of state individualized curriculum are that state-based curriculum makes moving between schools extremely difficult for students. Sometimes students have to retake grade levels or repeat classes that they have already taken. I myself have moved between schools 5 times throughout middle and high school, and I read the same book 3 times. Actually, I read the same book 3 times. I read The Book Thief 3 times, and I read To Kill a Mockingbird twice. And I had to retake Spanish 2 times. And I had straight A's and everything, but just because Delaware has a different curriculum than Virginia, I was forced to retake classes, and I was behind when I moved to Virginia and then when I moved back to Delaware. So it was extremely frustrating, especially as a straight A student. I was still behind when I moved, and it was out of factors that I couldn't control. It creates inequality among students based off of geographical location, where your parents' work affect the quality and content of what is included in your education. And that is not fair. You shouldn't have a lower quality of education based off of where your parents decided to live and whether or not they have to move or not. Out of circumstances you can't control, you're either going to have a greater or poorer education. And opportunities are unequal based off of different state curriculums. One student might have the opportunity to start learning Spanish in elementary school, while another might not be able to take it until their freshman year of high school. This dramatically changes the opportunities that are awarded to these students, which, once again, they cannot control. So, let's take a look at an attempt at a national curriculum. Now, Common Core was not a federal curriculum. The federal government did not sponsor it. However, they did add supplemental funding if states chose to participate in Common Core. States could join voluntarily, and its aim was to create a set of high-quality academic standards in math and ELA. They set standards that each student should know and be able to do at the end of each grade. And 41 states, the District of Columbia, 4 territories, and the Department of Defense Education Activity voluntarily adopted Common Core. Now, Common Core failed. It failed because there was a lack of implementation, because even though a set of standards were released, curriculum was not released. Teachers ended up teaching for a test instead of getting the material and the quality of content out. It was not equalized through that way. It was just equalized through standards. And that caused a lot of students to be left behind, a lot of confusion because they had to learn a specific process, even though people learn differently and students learn differently. And it was a failure, but we can learn from Common Core. We can learn to create a curriculum instead of just standards. We need to learn that each student has a different way of thinking. And instead of teaching a specific process that they must follow, teaching multiple different processes that they can use. And if a student arrives at the same conclusion through a different way of thinking, encouraging that and encouraging individualized problem solving, because Common Core took away critical thinking skills because each student had to do it a specific way. And so yeah, have a great rest of your day and goodbye.